All right, let's dive right in. In a world just totally flooded with information, how do you create content that actually cuts through all that noise? Content that really connects with people? Well, today we're going to build a blueprint for exactly that, a step-by-step guide to making content that genuinely works.
So, if you've ever spent hours, maybe even days, crafting a piece of content only to watch it, well, get completely ignored, you are not alone. It is such a common frustration, feeling like you're putting great stuff out there, but it just isn't hitting the mark. And here's the thing, the secret isn't just about what you create, it's about the whole process around it. The real magic, it happens in the planning, the strategy, how you share it, and then what you learn from it. The writing, that's just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. So let's put that puzzle together, shall we? We're going to walk through a simple but really powerful blueprint that you can use to build a content plan that actually gets results, from that first little spark of an idea all the way to the final analysis. Okay, first things first. Every great building starts with a solid foundation, right? And for content, that foundation is a crystal clear strategic plan. This is where you figure out exactly who you're building this for and what you want them to do. The whole process really boils down to 4 key stages, and it's a cycle. It just keeps going. You plan your strategy, you create the actual content, you get it out there to your audience, and then, and this is crucial, you analyze the results to make your next plan even smarter. The very first part of any good plan is knowing who you're talking to, and that's where buyer personas come in. Now, these aren't just vague ideas like moms or small business owners. No, these are detailed, kind of fictional profiles of your ideal customer. Think of them as characters like Marketing Mary or Startup Steve, people with real goals and real challenges.
Now, what's so cool about this is how it totally flips your thinking. You stop asking, what do I want to say? And you start asking, what does my audience actually need to hear? See the difference? It forces you to focus on their problems and their goals, not just your own. And it's not just about who they are, but where they are in their journey with you. I mean, someone who is just realizing they have a problem needs totally different information than someone who's ready to pick a solution, right? So mapping your content to these specific stages makes sure it's always relevant. Okay, with that solid foundation in place, now it's time to actually start building the thing, your content. This is where we shift from pure strategy to the art of storytelling. The best content almost always tells a story. Why? Because our brains are literally wired for stories. It's how we make sense of the world. And look, you don't have to reinvent the wheel here. Frameworks like Pixar's classic Once Upon a Time structure can help turn a simple idea into a really compelling story that hooks people right from the start. Let's make this super practical. Take a look at the SCQA framework. It's situation, complication, question, answer. So, situation. Our team is spending hours every day on manual data entry. The complication. This is causing errors and wasting time. The question. So, how can we automate this? And the answer. With our new software. See that? It's a little story that frames a problem your audience immediately recognizes. The whole goal is to create that connection that makes your message the solution they've been looking for. So you've built this beautiful structure, but it's useless if nobody ever comes inside. Your content can be super informative, it can be entertaining, but to really be effective, it needs an engine, something to drive action. And that engine, it's the call to action, or CTA. It is literally a call for your audience to take an action. It's the bridge between them just passively reading your stuff and actively engaging with your business. And this chart, wow, it just says it all. This study looked at over 93,000 CTAs and found that smart CTAs, the ones that are targeted to a user based on who they are, they perform way, way better than the generic ones. How much better, you ask? A massive 42% higher conversion rate. Just let that sink in for a second. You can get a huge boost in results not by changing your whole content strategy, but just by personalizing the ask. That is the power of targeting. So here's the most important thing to remember when you're designing your CTA. Be absolutely clear. Forget trying to be clever or overly persuasive. Just be direct. Tell people exactly what you want them to do and what they'll get for doing it. And for goodness sake, you have to test everything. Your assumptions can be so wrong. In this famous test, just changing a button's color from green to red boosted clicks by 21%.
Tiny changes can have huge results, but you will never, ever know unless you test.
All right, we're at the final piece of our blueprint, closing the loop. This is how we look at our results to make sure our whole content machine is always getting smarter, always getting better.
Now, this isn't a passive thing. This is active. It means setting up tools to listen, jumping in and responding to comments, helping customers with their issues, and just generally keeping the conversation healthy and on track. And as you're trying to improve things, just remember the lesson from that red and green button test. To get data you can actually trust, you have to be scientific about it. Change one thing at a time, the headline, the image, the button text, so you know exactly what caused the change. So after all this, what's the ultimate takeaway from our blueprint? It might just be this one single question. If you let this question guide every single piece of content you make, from a tiny social media post to a huge report, you'll make sure your work is never just floating out there in space. It will always have a purpose, a direction, and the power to actually drive action. So, what is the call to action for your next piece of content?